you have anybody in our room?
Melissa made it. Hooray.
I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry.
There's a lot of traffic getting here tonight.
Hopefully we have participants.
65 signed up.
I know.
Takes a while to
Hey,
get.
hi everyone. Welcome to this presentation. We're going to wait about another 15 seconds or so as we have some more people who are entering into the room, and then we'll get started. But we're glad that you're here. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Randy Stam. I'm a school counselor at NJACAC High School in Bergen County, New Jersey. I hope you are all doing well, and we would like to welcome you to this panel that is with a great deal of expertise and experts throughout the whole country. How wonderful and exciting for that. But we would like to welcome you to this session on applying in the age of COVID. And we would like to welcome you generally to our virtual college exploration program. So just as some quick housekeeping pieces of information, this is a webinar, so the chat has been disabled and your cameras and any audio is canceled on your end. So if you have any questions, we definitely encourage you to post them using the Q&A button. And also just please remember to sign up for additional sessions throughout the course of this week and next week. And you can find the full list at njacac.org/virtual fair. And then finally, please know that a recording of this session will become available within the next couple of days. So without any further ado, I turn it over to our esteemed panelists. Thanks so much, everyone, and have a great and positive learning experience.
Thanks, Randy.
Thanks so much, Randy. I appreciate that great introduction. I'm joined here by a panel of experts, as Randy said. I couldn't have said it better myself. Friends and colleagues of mine from across the country, and so excited to spend a couple minutes with you all tonight. As we thought about a topic that would speak to this moment, we couldn't think of a better title than "We're All in This Together." It felt appropriate for all of us, I think, to meet in a moment that felt uncertain. But as my great friend and colleague Kevin O'Sullivan suggested, that there's so much opportunity for all of us, students included, to wrest back some agency, to think about how they can regain some control over the process and really think about this as a process they can really dig into and fall back in love with in some ways, in a really positive outlook going forward. So before we get started, I want to have my colleagues introduce themselves. I'm going to start just really quickly to let you know that, again, my name's Greg Moyer. I represent Dickinson College, which is located in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. We're a small liberal arts college of about 2,300 students, and we're actually the 16th oldest college in the country. So thanks for having us, and I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Dan.
Wow, fun fact. Hello, everyone. And again, thank you for spending some time with us this evening. My name is Dan Zawacki. I work at the George Washington University. We are a solidly medium-sized research university in the heart of Washington, D.C., as represented by these cherry blossoms over my shoulder.
Melissa?
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for being here tonight. I know that everybody is Zoomed out these days, so for you to return back to Zoom to see us, we are honored and appreciate the time. But I represent Muhlenberg College, which is a liberal arts college of about 2,200 students in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Your parents may recall Allentown from a Billy Joel song, but Allentown is not that Allentown any longer. Third largest city in Pennsylvania, and community of students who are disarmingly friendly and faculty who are incredibly dedicated. We're excited to talk to you tonight.
Great. Thanks, Melissa. Kevin?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kevin O'Sullivan. I'm our Senior Vice President for Enrollment and Student Affairs at Iona College. And fun fact about Iona, we recently hired Hall of Fame basketball coach Rick Pitino to lead our men's basketball program. And I guess since we're talking about singing, some of you may know the song American Pie. Don McLean is an Iona alum, and the Chevy to the levee was actually the student bar on campus. So.
Kevin, you should keep going. These are great. What a great introduction to Iona for all of us, for sure, too. Thank you so much, Kevin. Mary Beth.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Beth Tamboro from Drew University. I have no comments about songs for you this evening, but I will tell you we're a smaller liberal arts college in Morris County, New Jersey, with easy access to the city, and we focus immersive experiences. It's a focus of Drew's to enhance the education you receive with us. Thanks.
Thanks, Mary Beth. Last but not least, Danielle.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. So good to be with you tonight. I represent San Diego State University. We are a very large 30,000 student undergraduate population institution located in beautiful San Diego, California. We are the second largest institution in the California state system, located in the second largest state in California. Fun fact.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Thanks to all of my colleagues for being here tonight. As I said, we chose a topic that was near and dear to us, in part because as I think many of us have been moving through the last few months, we found ourselves reminding families and students that we too have experienced COVID in many similar ways to our families. That I know that for a lot of my colleagues on this call, they live in New Jersey, a particularly hard-hit state, or New York, where Iona is a particularly hard-hit state as well too. And we too, just like all of our families and students going through this process, experienced the pandemic, felt its disruption, are eager to move past it, are so excited about the students and families that we've already met throughout this admissions process, know that they too are eager to think about the year ahead, are eager to step foot on their college campus and find a home that really fits them for the next 4 years. So that's what we're here to talk about tonight. We're here to talk about the way forward and what comes next. We chose a couple topics that we had heard on all of our college campuses that had come up frequently, things that we perhaps know that are on your minds as well. And know too that we'll save some time at the end for some Q&A. Please feel free to offer it up in the Q&A as it goes along. I'll watch that. I know my colleagues will as well too, and we'd be happy to try to respond in real time. But first, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Dan, who's going to address something that we have heard often, the impact of deferrals and gap years on next year's class. With so many students perhaps taking a full year away or maybe a semester away, what will that look like and how might that impact the class that is looking at college right now? So Dan, take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in any year, the college admission and application process is really all about the things that you can control as students and the things that you can't. And this year, there's so much more that is totally out of your hands as students. That doesn't mean that it makes us any less anxious to think about them by any means, but I am hopeful that, especially through panels like this one and all the other events that are happening this week and next, that you do get a chance to kind of relax a little bit and understand that the stuff you can control and the things you can't. And this is definitely one of those that is really out of your control. Obviously, COVID disrupted the college going plans of a lot of students from the last year's class, and many universities across the country, colleges and universities, saw an increase in the number of students who were taking gap years or taking deferrals, as Greg was saying. That doesn't necessarily mean, I know immediately the inclination is, oh my gosh, it's already so hard, it feels like, to get into the college, or especially to get in the one college I want to get into. This is only going to make it harder, right? They're going to have a more full class and there's even less spaces for me, even fewer spaces. That is not necessarily the case at all. I think outside of maybe some very, very high name brand institutions that had exceptionally high numbers of students make that decision to take a gap year and defer, those institutions you should definitely be checking with. They might have a little bit of a different answer. But I think by and large, as colleges and universities, we welcome the opportunity to enroll a robust class next year. I think one of the other big realities about the COVID pandemic this year from a college admission standpoint is that many universities saw declines in their operating revenue, whether they are public or private. Having a smaller class, a lot of schools under-enrolled this year, I think for good reason. A lot of schools made decisions about how to reopen this fall, if they're reopening at all. All of these decisions, made in the name of public health and the health and safety of our students and staff and faculty, they all tend to negatively affect the financial situation at each institution. And for tuition-driven schools, which is really all of us, really every school at this point, the opportunity to have a segment of students who are deferring for next year, does not mean that we are looking to then have a smaller class next year or be more selective next year. A colleague of mine on a panel recently said that, a lot of us are in a growth mindset, at this standpoint when it comes to this opportunity. And those students who are taking that gap year or that deferral, they are almost, they're like the whipped cream on top, of our ice cream sundae next year that will be our class. That's going to be a great opportunity for a lot of institutions. I know, especially at a place like GW, we were hit very hard by the COVID crisis when it comes to our revenue losses. And we definitely look forward to having a very robust class next year. We welcome the opportunity to perhaps over-enroll our class next year. That would be lovely. And so again, when it comes to the schools you're looking at and the things you can and cannot control, I would say the majority of schools across this country, they either didn't see an especially large number of students take that gap year or defer. So it's not going to be a huge factor for next year's class. Or if they did, they do not see that deferral process creating a more selective class for next year. You should still be looking at the schools that you're interested in, the ones that really excite you, that you can really see yourself at for the next 4 years, and still proceed with that application process, with the full confidence that you're doing all that you can to put your best self forward and really put yourself out there for that admission process. That feels like all the comments I've got. I'm not sure if if anyone has something strongly they'd like to refute or add on to. Otherwise, I think we can move on to the next topic.
Dan, I think what a great way to describe this is whipped cream on top of a sundae. Such a positive outlook. Again, Kevin, as a great reminder that this is a positive way to think about it. And in fact, not a burden, as Dan described. In fact, many of us, I know all of us on this call, but many of us nationally are eager to fill our classes next year full of interesting, talented students, and are excited about the students that are deferring to join us as well, too. I think you should have some really robust and rich and energetic classes to look forward to next year. Melissa, could you talk to us a little bit about another concern that we've heard, which is about the disruption, not just in grades last spring due to the pandemic, but also extracurriculars, and not just through the spring, through the summer and into this fall as well, too. I know a lot of students are nervous how that might impact their application process and what they might do to respond to it.
No, thank you, Greg. This is really, I know this is top of mind for a lot of folks. And again, as Dan very nicely referenced, there are definitely things that are just not in your control. And so, and that's not a bad thing. What that means is you've got a chance for some innovation and to sort of look and reshape and reframe that experience in a lot of ways. But colleges recognize the entirety of your high school experience as a 4-year experience. And the fact that this past spring for anybody in high school, whether you're a senior this year or whether you were a junior this year, there was a disruption last spring. And for many, virtually all high schools in the nation, there still continues to be a disruption of some sort, even though we've had some more time to adjust. And whether it's your school last spring just suddenly went completely remote or just shut down for a couple weeks to regame and figure out sort of what the next steps were. And then class continuity as a result for you in terms of your educational experience was disrupted. And then it's continued through this fall in lots of ways because in anticipation of, is your school hybrid? Is your school totally remote? Recognizing that those are all adjustments that take a toll on you as an individual student and potentially could and do impact your educational experience and your performance. There are some high schools that have moved to different grading systems as a result this past spring. Some moved to pass fail, others, in terms of students really sort of questioning, this is not, the performance last spring and this fall may not be reflective of what I'm capable of in terms of rigorous college work. And so just want to reemphasize in terms of the disruptions as it relates specifically to your academic work, we recognize that virtually the entire world educationally has been impacted by that. There are countries right now where school is not back in session yet and won't be for many months, and other places are still just trying to get their bearings together, and we, like you, are doing that as well. We're admissions counselors are getting adjusted to the virtual realm of high school visits, which typically would be in person in your high school, and we'd all be on whatever mode of transportation right now, planes, trains, automobiles, if you will, to reference the film. And so it's one of those things that we recognize and always have context in terms of where you're living and how you're learning. Even more so, though, to recognize that this shared context of the pandemic is something that will absolutely be part of all admissions thinking, because we're living through it with you just as much. The additional piece, I know there have been disappointments about activities, and for seniors this year, opportunities to have leadership positions, whether it's a senior year athletic season, whether it's a leadership position in a club, maybe it was plans this past summer, and recognizing that those opportunities due to health and safety completely evaporated and suddenly for many. Again, we're recognizing that, again, context in terms of what you are or are not able to access. And students will not be disadvantaged because all of a sudden their senior year fall sports season just evaporated because your high school has decided the health and safety of students was so important that, you know, athletics could not be, you know, conducted safely. Those are things that are not within your control and things that we completely understand. And you know, what we've seen in this process, interestingly, is the ability to have less activities this summer has allowed some students even just to explore. I don't know if my colleagues have had some conversations like this with prospective students, but I've heard some really sort of neat things that you may not actually think are things that we really value, because part of the questions that really are reflected in those extracurricular and activities to us as college communities is, what kind of campus community member are you going to be? And what kind of energy, what kind of talents are you bringing? And there are ways to convey that outside of organized activities, even though it's disappointing that they didn't exist this past spring and summer, and potentially don't exist this fall, but recognizing that there are other things that you're probably doing that really reflect your character, reflect your talents, reflect the things you care about in ways in which can be conveyed meaningfully to college admissions committees. You know, whether that's you're caring for a younger sibling at home because you have 2 working parents, or is that because or perhaps your situation is such that you had to work more to help out financially at home. Or maybe there's an elderly neighbor that needed meals delivered or needed help with their yard work. These are all things that are still really valued, although they may not typically appear in terms of organized resumes. So the silver lining in all of this is, even though you feel like this past spring and this upcoming fall, and certainly potentially through this next spring, doesn't reflect your ability academically or your ability in terms of what you might contribute to a college community, college admissions counselors are absolutely going to understand that. And you are not alone in terms of what some of those limitations are. And so to reassure you that we're real people too, that are experiencing things perhaps differently, but to the same level of disappointment in terms of limitations of what we can control, but really recognizing the things that we can and taking advantage of being innovative and creative, and even just taking a deep breath in a very, very anxious time to allow yourself to really think about the things that you want to engage in when you have the opportunity to do it again, when everything is safe to do so.
I love Melissa's reminder about this being a human process. There's a lot, and I think it's a tendency certainly to focus on all the things that have changed, but that is a part of this process, at least for these 6 colleges on the call, that has absolutely not changed. This remains a human process where we absolutely want to pay attention to your stories. We are, as Melissa said, context experts, right? We have always looked for context. We have always paid attention to one story at a time and tried to understand who you are and what you'll bring to our individual communities. And I think the other part that she mentioned too, that I think families and students always or have the tendency to confuse quantity with quality, right? And maybe some quantity has been disrupted or interrupted over the last few months, but how will you engage in some of the things, or differently engage in some activities, as Melissa said, is what we'll look for in this process this year, in this moment, given all of this context too. I think it's a great segue, Kevin, to this topic of continued agency in the process. Our new virtual world, you know, certainly all 6 of us in a normal time would be together, talking to you all in the same place. But listen, Danielle can be out there in San Diego and can be calling in from anywhere in the world. So can you talk to us a little bit about this topic of demonstrated interest, how colleges care about it, maybe why they care about it, and how students can approach that differently in our virtual world?
Yeah, certainly. And before I do that, I just want to acknowledge Melissa and Madison. We see your questions coming through, so thank you so much for participating this evening. We are going to answer all of your questions, so keep them coming, and we'll certainly answer them. I wanted to just acknowledge that. But to answer Greg's question, this is an uncertain time for colleges, right? A lot of changes and shifts. You'll see many schools moving away from standardized test scores this year. as part of their review process. And many colleges are adapting or embracing, if they haven't already, a holistic approach to their admissions review process. And there's many different components that go into that. But one of the main or one of the factors that colleges may consider, and more colleges are starting to consider, is something that Greg just mentioned, which is called demonstrated interest. So I'll talk to you briefly about what does that mean and how can you go about demonstrating some interest in the schools that you're most interested in as you go through your college search. And first and foremost, if a school is still able to offer an on-campus visit experience and you're in a position to be able to go and visit those schools, I would certainly encourage you to take advantage of those opportunities. I'm starting to see more and more of my colleagues reopening their campus visit programs. We were, as Greg mentioned before, New Rochelle was one of the areas hardest hit when the pandemic first started. In fact, it was probably the epicenter of coronavirus starting back in March. And I'm proud and excited to share we were also the first to go back in New York State. We started our fall semester August 10th. We're starting week 8 of this semester, and we've been open for campus tours for a couple of months now. So we're facilitating those on-campus experiences every day for students, and many of my colleagues at other schools are also doing the same. So definitely try to go out and visit some of those schools. I think with the exception of Danielle's school, most of us are within a very drivable distance of New Jersey. So if we're not already located in New Jersey. So certainly take advantage of those opportunities. But if you can't physically visit the school, actually I should preface that too. If you're going to visit schools, call the admissions office and find out what that tour might entail. Because campus tours have changed, there's a lot of protocols in place. Any of our visitors are required to wear a mask when they come, so we like to make sure that they're aware of those expectations. Some schools are taking your temperature when you arrive. So there's lots of different practices in place, but it's all tailored to keep you safe and also provide you the opportunity to really explore the school. So you want to check, am I able to visit inside buildings? Is it just an external walking tour? What is that visit going to entail? So follow up with the schools. They're going to be very transparent with you about what that entails and will guide you appropriately through that. If visiting a school isn't necessarily an option for you, there's lots of other ways right now that you can still demonstrate your interest. One of the easiest ways is to go to the college's websites that you are currently considering and just fill out an inquiry form, request information. Colleges are tracking all of that information, and it also allows them to know that you're interested in them. They can follow up with the appropriate information you're requesting, but also will likely follow up with an email or a phone call to start a conversation with you. Interact with the emails that the colleges are sending to you. I know it can be sometimes a little overwhelming to get a number of emails on a given day, but particularly with the schools that you might be interested in, take the time to just send a quick response to your admissions counselor, who oftentimes is the person emailing you. So just send them a quick note, say, thanks so much for the email. Want to let you know I'm considering your school. And if you have questions, don't be afraid to shoot a quick email. I mean, I can vouch for the fact that my admissions staff, and when I was an admissions counselor myself, I loved getting an email from a student that expressed any kind of interest in the school. I was excited to talk about your interests with you as a student and identify if we could be a good fit for you. So take the time to just send a quick email. It doesn't have to be paragraphs long and a life story. Just talk to us. What are your fears? What are you nervous about right now? Are you having some anxiety about the college process because of everything going on? We'll talk you through that. We'll walk you through some of the things you can do to help minimize those levels of stress and how to best position yourself. So email can really be a very useful tool. Certainly take the time to attend the virtual information sessions and tours that are taking place. I mean, tonight's a great event for you to learn from, very different schools, how they're going through the process. I know many schools, on my staff, I think many of my colleagues on this chat this evening, their admission staffs are scheduling appointments with each of your high schools, and they're scheduling individual virtual visits at your high school. So you have the chance to probably come onto a Zoom and meet with the admissions rep that will very likely be reading your admissions application. So it gives you a chance to foster that relationship, get to know your admissions counselor, and learn a little bit more about the school that you may not be able to ascertain right off the website or you can't get a feel for. Take the virtual tours. Schools have invested a lot of money over the last 6 to 8 months in enhancing their virtual experiences for students. They've become much more interactive. Content's most likely been updated, so you're probably getting the most updated versions of each of those institutions. And colleges are trying different approaches. We're trying to offer specialized tours. If you're a nursing student and you want to see the nursing labs, you can probably just go and visit those nursing labs. If you're into engineering or an honors program, there's lots of actually new initiatives that have arose as a result of the pandemic. I know here on our campus, we're inviting students to sit in on classes because of the fact we're offering all of our classes in a hybrid format this year, or a mixed mode format where it's in person and online. Students have the ability to log in from their house and just audit a class and sit in and hear about what's going on. So as much as the pandemic has created some challenges, it's created a lot of new opportunities for schools to connect with students. So I would certainly encourage you to take advantage of that. Follow them on social media. I mean, that's a relatively easy way for a lot of students. I know most of you have smartphones and are on Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok and Facebook. Well, I think TikTok's still around, but Facebook and everything else going on. So most colleges have all of those different accounts. And then I also sometimes encourage you to connect with your tour guide. Oftentimes that's they'll say, oh, follow me. I know we have our Gale Guide takeovers, and the Gale Guides fight for the opportunity to be the takeover for the day. And then they all want to share their personal Instagrams and stuff. So the benefit of those types of things are you get a very unedited view into the colleges. And that's not something I always promote, but I do think it's authentic for high school students that are going through the process to have that type of access to students. Let your let your school counselors know the schools you're applying to, and ask them if they can reach out or help you connect with admissions counselors if you're not sure who and how to get in touch with them. There's lots of ways, like I said, to get involved. I think that's a pretty good overview. I'm trying to be conscious of time, so certainly can answer some additional questions about that at the end, and if my colleagues want to add anything else.
Thanks so much, Kevin. And I think just the fact that, for all of you, Kevin's here tonight, he's the Senior Vice President at Iona. I think it's a really great example of what's happening out there, right? That in some ways the doors have really been flung open. He suggested too that their faculty are holding hybrid classes, that you could, to Monica's question about what classes might look like in this moment. I know at Dickinson, for instance, we set up entire studios in all of our labs so that certainly we are open and you can come and see those spaces in person, but it might be more challenging for a student from California or India or China or somewhere perhaps a bit further afield to see that, but now they can, and that's different in this moment. And I think it provides you with a great opportunity to access a college in a way that your peers that came before you never would have been able to do too. So Kevin mentioned another thing that I'd love, Mary Beth, if you would mind addressing too, about testing. We know there's a lot of testing interruption. We know there's a lot of testing anxiety. This is not new for this year, but certainly there's been an added layer in this moment too. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure, Greg, thanks. Well, first of all, I want to say that test optional admissions has become a much discussed topic since the onset of COVID-19. And every college and university on this panel tonight, with the exception of San Diego State, has a history of test optional admissions. So we are not thrown by this. We know how to do it. We value test optional candidates. A lot of academic research has shown that the transcript in a 4-year video, if you will, of a student record can sometimes be a better indicator of success in college than the snapshot of the SAT or the ACT. I do want to mention that San Diego State has committed to a test optional admissions policy this year, and as of today's date, they have not announced plans for next year. So every school you're hearing from tonight is a test optional school. So test optional admissions has become a very popular topic in the press, whether it's an industry magazine or newsletter, or it's the general press like the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. And I did a little bit of research, and I pulled just one headline from Monday's Insider Ed article. And it's more bad news for the SAT. So apparently 100,000 registered test takers will be unable to take their tests during September and October. And this isn't anything that the SAT and College Board has done. This is because the testing centers, which are typically high schools, are closed because of outbreaks. So we read this information all the time. ACT has also had a very similar experience, and we see similar articles regarding ACT tests. Other students have had hours and hours logged in trying to register for these tests and have had trouble. In the national news, in the general press, it's also been a popular topic. So what we see is that a vast number of institutions are suspending test score requirements this year. So I think that's really the theme and the thread that you see in the national news around test optional admissions. Now, apparently there are some exceptions to that. And what I have read is that some exceptions might be around an accelerated medical or law program. So a lot of times you'll hear about a 7-year accelerated BS, BA, MD program, or the same thing with the JD. Some of those programs are still requiring test scores. And additionally, some colleges, you'll have to check with the schools that you are looking to apply to, but some schools are requiring test scores from students who are homeschooled or attend schools that don't provide grades on their transcripts. So if you are in one of those situations, simply reach out, and you'll hear this over and over again in the admissions world. Simply reach out to your admissions counselor from the school, from the college, the university that you're considering. So my bottom line is that try to relax. Please be reassured. We are well aware, I can't wake up any day of the week and not read more news about testing. We are well aware of the struggles that you are all experiencing around getting registered for testing and taking testing. We've been in this business a long, long time. As Greg has mentioned, and certainly Melissa, we're interested in context, understanding you as individuals and students and what you can bring to our campus and our community. And we're really interested into getting to know you. So this might actually be a benefit because we're going to spend more time on your transcript, more time on your essays and you as an individual, and the scores will not be an issue this year. And since I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of students, and those are the ones that could just register, know that you're not alone. It's most students out there, many, many students out there. So test scores should not be the biggest thing you're worried about this year. So that's, so thanks.
That's perfect, Mary Beth. Thank you. And actually a great lead into our my final question for our panel here tonight. And it returns to this topic of agency. All of us have said, reach out to us, whether it's your regional counselor or someone on the college side, talk to us. But certainly the best and perhaps age-old way to talk to us is through the college admissions essay, right? It's the best way to talk to the admissions committee and speak directly to them. So my colleague Danielle is going to talk a little bit about the essay, what it might look like in this year, given the context, and how to approach that from a student perspective. So thanks, Danielle.
Thanks, Greg. Greg and I have a running joke that, you know, the essay is our best and least sort of favorite part of the application process, right? It's where we sort of dive in, we take the most time, we get to know you best. But it really is that. It is the part of the application, we keep reminding you, where you do have control. Right? You have control over the topic that you choose, perhaps if you're filing a common application, what you write about, how well you write about it, and obviously what you would like to relay to the admission committee. The essay is a wonderful flat piece of paper where you get to build dimension. And that's not always easy to do. We understand that, right? Especially as a young person. And perhaps, right, in our English courses, we're not ever taught to write the college essay. We learned other things in our classroom experiences. But it is an opportunity for you to come alive off of a piece of paper. It is the opportunity for you to relay information in the application that we won't see elsewhere. It is your opportunity to help us as the admission counselor to connect the dots to who you are. I want the essay for me to really be able to paint a picture. And I do want it to be able to allow me to sort of build a picture of who you are as the applicant to my institution. So take your time with the essay. I know we rush into the essay, we dive into it quickly because we almost want to get it over with, but it really is something to be savored. So take your time with it. Be sure that you ask for help. It's okay to have somebody else look at your essay, not too many sets of eyes. It starts to remove your youthful tone. So be careful about that. But we do want to be sure that certain things that are not caught by spell check, like 3 ways to spell 2, could be caught by somebody else's eyes. So that's always helpful. Think about what you want to explore and how you want to relay who you are. You know, it could be, I think of the essay as a way for you to relay an ordinary topic, but write about it extraordinarily. And that's all we're asking you to do. We're not asking you to cure cancer by the time you apply to college, or to, you know, to create a sustainable, you know, new item for patent, etc. We really are just asking you to be you in the process. And the way that you can do that is to think about who you are and relay it through a strong writing sample. The essay is your time to shine, and you have control over it. So take control and ownership of it. It really is a fun topic for us. It's really a great way for us to dive in. And it's also a great way for us to connect the dots, right? It's obviously a holistic combination of who you are. And this year, with, to be honest, the removal of testing, we're going to look wholeheartedly at the items in the application that can allow us to get to know you better. So things like, as Kevin mentioned, demonstrated interest, right? Things like the topic that you consider in your essay, who you might ask for a letter of recommendation from, right? And what that person relays about you. So the essay is a great topic. Think about these things for your essay, the tone of your essay, right? The topic that you want to consider. These are all important factors, but take ownership and control over it. Be sure that you proofread. Choose a topic that you have passion for. As you relay this passion in your essay, it will really come to light. So think about the topic. A few other things too with the essay. There may be more than one writing sample in the application process. In addition to your general essay, which could be an open-ended sort of topic of choice if you do file a common application, you may be asked specific information about the institution that you're applying to. So be careful here. Make sure that you're always using the correct name of the college. It's wonderful if you can spell Boston and Massachusetts correctly, but if you're not applying to Boston College, Boston University, Northeastern, then you might be sending your essay to the wrong school, right? So we want to be careful about that. We also want to obviously do a deeper dive for those essays, not just sort of the surfacey research topic, but we really want to dive in. We want to think about the things we want to relay and how well we've done that research to get to know the institution better. Maybe relaying information that you've learned through demonstrated interest, like your tour or an information session or an overnight visit previously, contact with an alumni, a conversation with your neighbor who may have graduated, or a current student from your high school who's now attending, are all great things to mention when you're thinking about, again, that specific essay. So do inquire about the university, get to know us better so that you can relay that information, of course, in the essay that might be specific to our college or university. And then in addition to that, this year, if you're being asked about COVID, which in my opinion should be a separate essay topic from your general essay, as COVID has affected us worldwide, you want to be sure to relay specific instances in which you have been affected. So think about the ways in which COVID has affected your learning capabilities, your academic experiences, your extracurricular situations, your family situations, your financial world, and please relay that to us in those questions so that we can obviously take a look at that and how it has impacted your application process. But those are all 3 different ways: the application essay, the additional supplemental essays, and the COVID essays that you have control over in terms of topics, the tone that you set, the topics that you choose, what you write about, how you write about it, and obviously the information that you relay to construct a really, really great story as to who you are as the individual applying to our institutions. So good luck and take your time.
Great advice all around, and perfectly timely as questions were coming in about the college admissions essay. Lots of questions about testing. I know I sent a quick quick note to Jennifer, who asked a great question too, but suggested to her that that she check out, that you all should check out fairtest.org is a great resource. And I see my panelists shaking their heads now too, and agreeing that it's just a really good aggregated resource to find out where there's some testing information about individual colleges as well too. Some good questions coming in about how long we take to read an essay. So we have 5 minutes left, and we'll try to get to some of your live questions coming in. And since Melissa's been waiting so patiently, we're going to start at the top with hers. And she asked a question about what business schools are like and how many internships are offered. What is the graduation and acceptance rate for each school? So I'll just say the last part is certainly going to depend on the school and the institution, but I'll toss it over to my colleagues. I know some of them have business schools that maybe can speak to what they're like and what internships are like at those places too.
Yeah, I'm happy to dive in a little bit about business. GW has a business school. I think in general, any college or university you look at that has a school of business, it has that school because they have produced a program and a curriculum that really helps prepare their graduates for a career in the field of business. And that absolutely is generally going to include internships, either as a requirement through the School of Business or as something that's easily available to students who want to tackle that. That's not just schools in the city. I think one of the big kind of misnomers is that in order to get an internship and et cetera, you have to go to the cities and things like that. Absolutely not the case. You know, any college or university that has a business school, as I said, is going to have a program set up, perhaps in a nearby metropolitan area if they are quite far afield, to be able to make sure that you are having experiences, you know, where you're able to apply the things you're learning in the classroom out there in the real world. I will echo what Greg said. Each school is going to have its own graduation acceptance rate. And, you know, a lot of that always available, you know, on the various admissions websites and everything else. I don't know if you also mean that specifically for business schools or whether it's for the universities as a whole, but most schools also generally don't break out the individual acceptance rates or graduation rate for those individual schools within the university. They usually do an aggregate, you know, for the whole student body. But yeah, I mean, any school you look at with a business school is absolutely going to have internships be a part of their curriculum there for you.
And I think too, Dan, you know, an internship is a great way for you to find direction and affirm your major, right? We don't want you to wait until senior year to tell your mom that accounting wasn't the right fit for you. It's a little too late at that point. And so an internship is actually, I think, a great way for you to, again, affirm your passions, think about the direction that you want to move in, because there's lots of different sectors, right, in business. So even if you say, I'm interested in business, what does that mean, you know, for you as an individual? So I think that whether it's an internship, usually voluntary, a co-op, usually for pay, for credit, non-credit, whatever the university's sort of system is that is offering for you, please get involved. I think putting into practice what you're learning is quite important. But again, it sometimes does drive our undecided students to a major, and then it affirms for the students who do have interest or who applied with interest to really just affirm that and be sure that that is the direction that they want to take to graduation.
You can also measure, just from a business school standpoint specifically, there's an accreditation called the AACSB accreditation, and that's the highest level of accreditation that a business school can receive. So if you're trying to gauge an institution's commitment to the college, a business school, that's one way to gauge the level of commitment, or, you know, just how strong that program may be in terms of the resources allocated towards the college.
I also think, as you know, liberal arts schools on the panel, I think we're firm believers that your skills should always be transferable. So you don't necessarily always have to think about a business degree, a finance degree in a school of business to get where you're going. You could do an economics degree at a liberal arts school like Dickinson College, if they offer, to get where you're going, right? So when we think about transferable skills, reading, writing, presenting information, researching, etc., most of us will offer you a good, solid liberal arts education in order to get there. Perhaps then the internship is the way in which you set yourself, the tone that you set for yourself, apart from the other applicants who might be looking at a liberal arts curriculum, whereby you can then glow and show all of your great qualities because you're doing an internship, obviously, in the field that you're looking to pursue.
I know that we're...
And by the way, Drew is a liberal arts school that has a marketing and accounting and a finance major and a business administration major.
I know that we're going to run out of time to answer all of your great questions, and Randy's here to remind me that we are about to run out of time. But I'll just say that there are great questions about how to get in touch with Iona in here, and questions specific for all of our schools in the chat. And so just know that we all, just like we said, stand ready to answer those questions. You want to get a hold of Kevin? I know his contact information is on the website. You should go find him. Go to our website, use this as resources, and let us know how we can be helpful too. So I'll just thank my colleagues for joining us tonight, and thank you all for joining us. And I will pass it over to Randy to bring us home.
Great, thank you to our esteemed panel of experts from around the country. This was awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the students and families who were participating and observing. So when we close out this session, there will be a quick 4-question survey that we would really appreciate if you would take so that we can get some feedback. And also we encourage you to sign up for more of the sessions. Many of the colleges that are represented here will be hosting individual college sessions throughout the course of the next week or so. So you might be able to get some more answers about specific schools. And you can sign up for those at njacac.org/virtual fair. And then just as a reminder, a recording of this session will become available in the coming days. All right, everyone, thank you so much and good luck to all of you.
Thanks, everybody.